Hi, I'm John Michael McGrath. I'm a digital producer here at TVO, and here today with me is Lyba Spring, a sexual health educator, worked for 30 years with Toronto Public Health. We are discussing the new Ontario sex ed curriculum. Lyba, first things first, this is the province's first thorough update to the curriculum since 1998. How would you rate this curriculum relative to what came before it?
Oh my goodness, it's much better. It's much more comprehensive and more current.
Let's talk about some of the things that have changed since 1998. One of the big ones we focused on in a blog post we wrote for the Agenda blog earlier this week. I referred to it as using the clinical names of body parts. Explain to our viewers why that was a mistake on my part.
Well, it's not exactly a mistake. These are anatomically correct terms, but when we're talking to kids, we usually call them dictionary words. Mm-hmm. And, clinical is so clinical sounding.
What's important, though, about you used the word when we were discussing this earlier about normalizing and standardizing.
That's right.
The words. Why is that so important for young children?
Well, let's start with standardizing. In your blog, you were writing about the issue of sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. And I have known several stories where people did not have dictionary words for their genitals, and they were being sexually abused, and it couldn't be stopped because they were unable to disclose. They weren't understood. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, it is important to have standard terms so everybody knows the same words. But the normalizing is also interesting because, you don't have special words for nose and ears and mouth. So for the same reason, there's no reason to have different words for genitals. You can use family words at home. It's not a big deal, but they need to have the complementary dictionary terms.
We need to all know that we're playing from the same deck, or playing from the same definitions.
Yes, that's right.
One of the other elements that has raised some concern among the critics of this new curriculum is the introduction of same-sex relationships or same-gender relationships earlier than had been discussed. This is one of those really great examples of just how old the curriculum was. I mean, in 1998, same-sex marriage wasn't even legal in Ontario yet. Is this something that needs to be addressed as early as it is in the new curriculum?
Well, I'm sure that a lot of these kids have been exposed to families where there are two people of the same gender who are married or living together, mm-hmm. or a mom who's lesbian who doesn't have a partner. I mean, they go to nursery school, and they've definitely met other families. So I don't see the big surprise in introducing it in grade 3.
When we were discussing this earlier, I mentioned the Ontario Human Rights Code. This is part of bringing the education system into line with the laws we already have.
Yes, which is perfectly reasonable. But it's a funny kind of balance. There are societal changes that eventually end up in as laws, and sometimes there are laws that make the change for people in society. But, I mean, these issues are things that should be discussed at home from the time a kid is really small.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's been one of the criticisms that Progressive Conservative MPP Monty McNaughton has said, that this should be really left to the parents. Others say that this actually helps the parents out.
Both. Parents sometimes need a little help, which is what I continue to do, giving workshops to parents about raising sexually healthy children. So this is an important thing to do. But I mean, for me, the funny part of it is that when you look at the research, there's a research paper that was done in New Brunswick where parents said, yes, we should be giving our kids sexual health education, and I fully intend to. And then you look at the answers when they said, well, so are you doing it? And they said, like, no.
Right. One of the new additions, even relative to 2010, when there were some, I'd say, more marginal changes or more incremental changes, one of the additions since 2010 has been a real heavy focus on the issues of consent. The minister told us earlier this week that you just need to look at the headlines and realize that this is a big issue. Is this something that teaching kids these limits in school can really make an important difference?
Oh, I'm sure it can make an important difference. But again, it should be emphasized in the home as well. I mean, even in my own home, when my kids were small and my son had pinned down my daughter, I said to her, well, you have to be really clear, say, get off me and mean it. And to him, I said, look, if somebody says get off me, you listen and you do it. So yeah, it starts very young. And it is important to teach respect, because sexism is something that needs to be completely eliminated from our society. But it's something, again, it starts in the home. And in terms of consent to sexual activity, well, you have to teach people how to use their words and how to be clear and how to have a certain congruity between your body language and the words that come out of your mouth.
That this wasn't in the 2010 revisions, which you played a part.
I did.
Does that say to you? Does that show you how much our language around sex and specifically consent is changing even in just 5 years?
Oh, absolutely. Because in California, for example, they have instituted at the universities something that they call affirmative consent. So it's not just the no, it's the yes, I want to do this. It's the enthusiastic consent. It's the ongoing consent. So if you're starting one sexual activity, you may not want to move into another sexual activity. And these things have to be clear between people.
This is part of a cycle where we're going to now see curriculum, not just sexual education, but other curricula updated over time. Is there something you want to see added in the next revision?
Well, it's not so much that I want something added in the next revision, but I would like to say a word about the implementation, if you don't mind.
Oh, please.
Because in Toronto, where I am, the Toronto District School Board has a very close relationship with Toronto Public Health. So Toronto Public Health sexual health promoters can work with teachers. They can show them the lesson plans, which are already written, and teachers can use them. I really don't know what's going to happen in the rest of the province. So a curriculum guideline is only as good as the implementation. What I really hope is that the implementation is going to be good. What I also hope is that there will be more education for teachers when they're first learning to be teachers, so they become comfortable, so that they become informed. I mean, you can write anything you want in a guideline, but the implementation is really the key.
Right. Absolutely. Lyba Spring, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome.